For me, this is the most wonderful time of the year. In fact, so first of all, Rocco Miller's been on the show before. He does a great job at his website, bracketeer.org, with Bracketology. He's on Field of 68. I'm watching him like every week. They're breaking things down a couple times a week. I love this time of year. Now, this is more my forte than it is Jim's. So I always tell Jim whenever we have a bracketologist on, like, you can truly sit the segment out.
Like you
I'm like,
want
just go.
to take over.
I'm like, just leave.
You're like, I don't want you to be involved.
You can if you want, but.
Well, thanks for coming on, Rocco. Yeah. Here's John.
All right. So Rocco Miller's back with it. Rocco, for you, again, I mean, you eat, sleep, breathe this stuff like I do. Once we get the calendar flipping to February, which is about to happen, I mean, is this your favorite time of year, like the lead up to the madness, or do you like it more once we have the bracket? Or this, to me, is the best time of the year, the 4 or 5 weeks leading up to it.
I think it's the most exciting for sure. And, bracketology is a fun 2-month ride. I really try to wait to get involved till after more mature data comes in, like around mid-January. It's why you don't see many updates November through January for me. But I'm doing way more than bracketology, fellas. I'm doing analyst work, a TV broadcast now, scheduling in the off season. So it's become a 365-day operation in my world, but it's been pretty cool because you do it all year long to get to this point, and with the transfer portal and so much player movement. I mean, Nicky Boyd, my boy from Florida Atlantic, is playing for the Aztecs now. I mean, this is the world we're in. So this whole off season, just constant conversations with no real games to watch. It does get really exciting now to see, okay, how many of these rosters actually came together, and where did all the failures occur? Like, look what's going on at Miami right now. So it's a fascinating time in college sports, and you guys are so well supported with a great Aztecs program down there.
It's for another day, but one of the more underappreciated stories of the entire college basketball season, to your point, or the more under covered stories, is Nick Boyd was on the floor. I mean, Lamont Butler shot over top Nick Boyd in that game in Houston. And now Nick Boyd is at San Diego State. I just think it's unbelievable that that's even possible, but that's where we are, like you said, with this freedom of movement in this new era. All right, so Rocco Miller's with us. Let's just start 30,000 foot. I think the Mountain West this year is really good. Now, it's not last year really good where they thread this needle and get 6 teams in, but the 30,000 foot view of the Mountain West, like, you look at it and metrically as well, like there's 4, 5, 6 teams that have put together at least solid years, right?
I think so. Yeah, and I think teams have gotten better over the year, too. I feel like Colorado State's one that I keep looking back. Every game they play, they're getting better. I think they might arguably have the best defense in the Mountain West right now, which usually yields great results in March in terms of either the Mountain West tournament or just finishing higher in the standings. They're sitting there with only 2 losses in the league. But unfortunately for them, early on in the year, they took a loss from half court to UC Riverside.
Yep.
And Riverside's not a bad team. I love Mike Magpio down there, and they just knocked off the 2 beasts of the Big West. But it's still a harmful home loss at quad 3. They lose a game to Colorado, their rival on the road. Now Colorado's winless in the Big 12. I think they fell to 0-8 last night. And Washington has been a disappointment in the Big 10. So they're owning 3 losses that are defining them. And that's some of the unfortunate breaks that can happen to a league like the Mountain West that's in, maybe 6th, 7th, 8th in the pecking order conference-wise. And we're going through an unprecedented situation with the SEC forecasted to have as many as 13 bids at this juncture. Now, I'm still doubtful they can get all 13 of those teams in by the time all these teams take enough losses, but I think they're feeling pretty good about getting 10 or 11 teams. And even leagues like the ACC and the Big East are, suffering from more famine than they're used to. And so what does that leave the Mountain West? Well, you have 3 teams right now, San Diego State included, that are clear tournament teams today. Like Utah State is on the most solid footing with their road win down there at Viejas, their road win at St. Mary's, other great wins across their resume, and only the 2 losses. So they're sitting pretty at this juncture. But you have San Diego State and New Mexico, who also have done great work in the non-conference. Anytime even if San Diego State drifts deeper into the bubble, a win away from home against Houston. I mean, what other bubble team's going to have something that strong? Not many, if any. And same goes for New Mexico with their win over UCLA. A lot of good work they've done. So, barring collapse, I do feel good about the league getting at least 3. And then you've got some upside with Colorado State and Boise State's remaining schedule. And then we'll see if a team like maybe a UNLV or Nevada can get hot maybe at the Mountain West tournament to get the team, get the league an extra team.
All right, so Rocco Miller is with us right now, bracketologist on John and Jim, first bracketologist of the year. Should have about 60 between now and Selection Sunday. I'm kidding. So back to San Diego State for a moment, because we feel as if covering them here locally, like every game is a knife's edge. Rocco, you follow this. I mean, they won at Air Force at the buzzer, literally. 0.1 seconds, Wayne McKinney lays it in. Last night, they're down 21 at home to San Jose State. San Jose State's been good, but you can't be losing at home to the Spartans. They come all the way back and win the game by 3. I guess my question is, with this 20-game league schedule, they're halfway through their 7-3. There's 10 more games to go. I mean, do they have to avoid slipping up to one of these quote-unquote bottom schools in this? Like, can they afford a loss to San Jose State on the road? Can they afford a loss to whom else? At Wyoming and still get into the field or not?
Well, first of all, I would say they can absorb one really bad loss based on the fact that they have the wins against Creighton and Houston and road Boise and Nevada already in the bank. Now, Boise and Nevada are not tournament caliber teams at this juncture. However, Creighton and Houston are clearly tournament level. And so you can't take what's already been done. You also can't take away the fact that San Diego State's 7-2 away from home right now. That's, if not the best record out of all bubble teams, it's certainly one of them. Perhaps you could go as low as Drake to 8-1, but they're not a conventional bubble team from a bigger league. And I think San Diego State in general, if they do that on the road, like your Wyoming road example, or any other road example like San Jose State up here in the Bay Area, I think that would actually be a little bit more acceptable, because that's probably going to land in the 3rd quad instead of the 4th quad. Now, once you do that twice, then there's maybe an argument to be made that the bad is starting to outweigh the good. And that's really what it comes down to. For the selection committee with 12 members, they're looking at teams, what they like about teams and what they don't like. And right now, San Diego State's in a solid position because there's so much more to like than to pick apart. Yes, the close wins are concerning. Last night was concerning, but they're also finding ways to win with a youthful team. I mean, Gwath and Taj are freshmen. Davis, Bird, and Heidi are sophomores. Yeah. And so they're a kind of team that's projecting where when they go down, those close wins are actually going to help them, I think, from a basketball sense. So, we'll have to see how it plays out. Now, again, I do think there's room to absorb one of those horrible losses, but certainly don't want to take 2.
I'm glad you mentioned their youth real quick, because first of all, Rocco Miller's with us, bracketologist. And San Diego State, here's the other thing, and I'm curious to get your perspective on this. When a team plays without a player for an entire season, is it a factor? They've been without their only preseason all-conference player, Reese Waters, due to a foot injury. Their top returning scorer from last year's team was their 7th leading scorer. Now, he might be an NBA player in the future in Miles Bird, and he's been absolutely terrific. But they're 225th in experience. And from that point to every other team with least experience in the country, they're the only team vying right now for an at-large spot in the NCAA tournament. I guess my question is just this. How impressive is it what Brian Dutcher has done when you consider the fact, like you said, all the youth? Last night against San Jose State, they had 5 underclassmen on the floor in the final 5 minutes of the game. It's kind of like unprecedented what they're doing, right, with this youth.
It is, yeah. And I think if the same group of guys went and played for a different program or a different staff or what have you, it might not work. They might be a failing team for all the reasons you mentioned. But the reality is Brian Dutcher's got a well-oiled machine. They are the beasts of the Mountain West, and they've earned that title, and mainly because of effort, things that are related to effort, which is defense, which is rebounding, which are the things that have made the Aztecs program special over the years. This team's no different. I wake up this morning, I look at the metrics just like you guys. San Diego State's 9th in the country against effective field goal percentage, 9th in the country in defense, 9th in the country against 2-point percentage, 5th in the country at block percentage with this monster Gwath for the freshmen. So they went and recruited to their style of play. It might not have been sexy to many other teams they were competing with at that same level, but it's certainly been effective. Just the fact that they beat Houston alone that early in the year, it tells you everything you need to know about how good this team can be, or just how annoying they can be to play against. I guess is a better way to put it. And so to me, the way that they're able to achieve results, yes, I do think you're right. Bird's a pro. I've talked to NBA scouts about him; they love him. But I think beyond that, this is a more Aztec tried and true, a team that the fan base, the show, everybody can get rallying behind because they play excellent defense and they're doing hustle plays to get these tough wins, and nothing's handed to them. You know, you got to go out and earn a win against San Jose State. You got to go earn a win against Air Force. Some of that's more exciting, and obviously it's a lot more nerve-wracking, but that's the Aztec way most years.
Rocco Miller's with us. Rocco, before you go, I do want to ask you about UC San Diego, even UC Irvine. I mean, we've watched UC San Diego here firsthand against the Aztecs a ton. I mean, even as they transition from Division II. Last year, I don't know if you recall it, there's this incredible game. Jaden Ladia's a putback at the buzzer off a Lamont Butler miss in La Jolla. Otherwise, the Aztecs lose that game. They literally won at the buzzer. This year was the opener. San Diego State trailed by 5 with 5 minutes to play, won the game by 5 points. It looks right now like a great win. Do UCSD or UC Irvine have at-large prospects if they don't win the league or not?
Well, I love both teams. So for UC San Diego, I was down in Daytona Beach, covered their dominant tournament run. They had a couple close games early in the tournament, but they won the championship game down there by 35 against Toledo, and I think put a lot of the mid-major people like myself on high notice as one of the top mid-majors in the country. That role has only continued. The win at Utah State is super fascinating, as Utah State only has 2 losses. One of them is against this Triton program in La Jolla. And obviously the setback at home to UC Irvine, followed by the setback against Riverside, has them on the outside looking in. They would need to run the table. They do get a road game on February 8th at UC Irvine. I'm heading down to Irvine for that one in a couple Saturdays. If that's a win and they win out the rest of them, I think they're back in an interesting situation because that'll be a quad 1 road win. Obviously, they can't get that anywhere else in the Big West, and they can't afford any slip ups. On the Irvine side of things, they're pretty much right next to the cutoff right now. But again, if they're in the at-large situation, they're going to have to take it at the loss, and that might just be too much to push the Anteaters out. It's so brutal because UC Irvine right now is 11-3 in true road games. Nobody else comes close to 11 road wins on the bubble. They play most of their non-league games on the road. I helped with that schedule. I was on the call for their games in Canada, and they're an impressive team. They've also absorbed 2 season-ending injuries to Andre Henry and to Redfield at that tournament I covered. So they're so deep and they're so connected. It's fascinating. I would love there to be a world where they both get in. Perhaps the only way it can happen is if UC San Diego goes and wins at Irvine to get them back to where they were, and then losing the finals to the same Irvine team. But they need to hit an inside straight, and it's really unfortunate.
No doubt about it. Rock, always appreciate it, man. Enjoy your work. Enjoy your work on social media. And again, when I see on Field of 68 or Bracketeer.org, so I always look forward to that. I appreciate you taking time for us here in San Diego, and hopefully we can have you back one more time before Selection Sunday.
It was great talking to you, Rocco.
My pleasure, fellas. Anytime, guys.
Rocco Miller, Bracketeer.org. But